Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns for day 17 of Around the League in 30 days as we make a stop in Milwaukee to check on the Brew Crew fresh off of their NL Central title in 2024. My name is Tyler, my co-host today, Will and Bobby, as we again are on day 17, starting to get to that back half of things with our 30-day challenges. I keep calling it. It has been a grind, but nevertheless, it is. Again, the Brewers, who had a great season last year, choked in the playoffs, and are looking for revenge this year. Let's look at that roster heading into 2025. Jackson Churio at the top, the breakout rookie for them last year. Christian Yelich back after an injury-plagued 2024. William Contreras, one of the, if not the best catcher in baseball last season. Garrett Mitchell, Rhys Hoskins, Phillies legend. Bryce Terang, Joey Ortiz, Sal Frelick, and Oliver Dunn. Mark Canha comes in on the bench as an option for them, and Caleb Durbin, who came over in the not the Caleb Williams, my
The
goodness.
Caleb Darvin trade.
No, I was gonna say the Caleb Williams, wrong sport, Devin Williams trade. And that is your lineup. And then looking at the rotation, Brewers always seemingly having great pitching. Freddie Peralta at the top, Tobias Myers, Nestor Cortez comes over from the Yanks, Aaron Savale, and Jose Quintana, who signed as of the day we are recording this on March 3rd. Not listed, by the way, Brandon Woodruff, who will be back for them in May, who is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Connor Thomas, Tyler Alexander joined the bullpen of what's been a really good bullpen over the last several years, but not having the big guns in there anymore. No more Josh Hader, of course, for years now, but no more Devin Williams as well. Trevor McGill
They
will
can make it past
get
the
those.
National League Division Series now.
They can move on. Trevor McGill assuming those closing duties now. And that is your lineup and roster for the 2025 Brewers. Now getting into the storylines. Well, last year, us very much included, we doubted them to begin the year. We all had them finishing in the basement of the NL Central, although they won the
They were a little
NL
off.
Central. We were a little off. So, us and the media and the league, are we going to underestimate them again with the changes that they've made this offseason?
Most likely.
Yeah.
I don't see him above second place right now, and I'm even considering third, depending on how I do my predictions. But I mean, the thing with the Brewers is I'm never going to doubt their pitching. That is the one thing that holds steady. Um, their offense feels like it takes quite a hit losing Adames, especially because there's nothing that really that stands out too much outside of him besides Contreras and now Churio after what he did his rookie year. Hoskins took a step back his year back from injury, and Yelich always seems to get hurt. But I still think there is some potential that this lineup will figure it out. They always seem to figure something out. Um, I probably won't have them winning the division, and so they'll probably win the division. That's how I'll be proven wrong.
Yeah, I mean, again, we all thought that last year was going to be a big step back, but they didn't. And a lot of guys stepped up um, last year and kind of proved everybody wrong. Again, Jackson Churio is a great young player, and I think that even looking at him, he could take the next step, or maybe he's leading this team. William Contreras, though, unbelievable last year. And um, do we expect him to be that good again? Maybe, but he had a great year. Looking at their
For a
additions
catcher.
for a catcher, yes. Looking at their additions, it's all pitcher related except Caleb Duran. What did I just say? Durham.
You like
Again,
wanted to say Durham and Durbin. You came as
yeah,
Durham.
yeah, Durbin. But a lot of losses, right? Adames goes, Williams goes, Hobie Milner, Gary Sanchez, Montas. So can they combat all the losses that they've had?
What losses to the pitching or
Those
lose
are
losses in
subtractions
general?
overall.
I mean, their pitching is always something that's been a strength from them. So any time this team can bolster the already, um, I guess I want to say strong pitching staff, even though it feels a little weird to say if you're going to lose Devin Williams. But pitching has always been a strength in Milwaukee, and I don't see that changing. I do see that even getting better now that they've brought in Quintana and Cortez, they're going to get back Woodruff, and so they're going to, at least in the rotation sense, have a seems like a good variety of options.
Yeah, and they signed Mark Canha really off the back of the Blake Perkins injury. He got injured in spring training with a right shin fracture. So look out for that because he will be back as well, and that'll be another outfield option.
He'll
Um,
play mostly versus lefties.
yeah,
If
I was
anything,
gonna
maybe
say
he'll play and like Mitchell or someone will sit, or I guess
Frelick,
Frelick.
yeah.
Frelick.
Yeah, Frelick, yeah. I mean, he can be a platoon option, so there's him as well. I guess looking more into Adames, he was such a big catalyst for them last year, and they lose him after signing that massive deal with the Giants. And I think shortstop at this point in time is a little bit of a question. Right now, the projection is that, of course, that as I scroll back up to it, um, who
Joseph
who
Ortiz.
yeah, it's
Joey Ortiz
Ortiz.
will be at
There
short.
we go. Joey Ortiz will be at short. But they have some options because Oliver Dunn, they have also projected at third. They bring Durbin in again. So, well, I mean, I guess first talk about that loss offensively, the production they're going to be losing, but also what do you think that they will end up doing at shortstop?
I mean, I think Ortiz, for starters, is going to be the shortstop. The question is more so who's going to play third. Right now, it's slated to be Oliver Dunn, it seems, but Caleb Durbin could be the option instead. We'll see where that goes. The bigger thing is offensively, I feel like, is how you're going to replace Adames. Last year, he had 32 home runs, but 112 runs batted in, which was a career high, 93 runs scored, and a 794 OPS. The first place I'd look to try to see where they can get some of that improvement back is a better year from Rhys Hoskins. At least based on Fangraphs projections for the roster, Rhys is slated to be a full-time player and not platooning like he was last year with Bowers. And Rhys really had an uncharacteristic Hoskins type of season, but he was coming off of not playing at all in 2023. So he still showed he had pop hitting 26 home runs while not really playing every day. So I assume this season he's going to get back more to what he was in Philly. So he'll hit around 240, 30 home runs, 90 plus RBIs. And so just that alone, getting the extra pop from Rhys and runs added in is a big increase. If you can get more of a full season from Yelich, that'll help knock in some more runs batted in. And then if Churio does indeed take another step, then expect, believe it or not, even better power numbers and runs batted in from that leadoff spot. And I do think that runs scored is something that he'll be among the league leaders for at the end of the season. And the last thing from what they're losing in the Dames, I would originally have said defense, and for most of his career that is true. But last year he didn't have good defensive numbers. He had minus 16 defensive runs saved and 20 errors. The previous two seasons with the Brewers, he had 7 plus 17 defensive runs saved. So I don't know what it was about his range or about some errant throws he was making. So you would hope that at least if Ortiz and Dunn combined can be a little bit, at least be average to maybe slightly above average, but preferably as long as they can be average defensively and you get the increases in lineup from or offensively in the lineup from a few other guys, then they'll be able to fill Adames' hole at least pretty nicely, not
I
perfectly.
I think Jackson Churio is the guy that you really have to look at because of course, he finished what I think third, ultimately in NL Rookie of the Year voting.
Which
But
is
like
kind of crazy.
he feels like a guy that can take a big step. Like I don't know. There was times last year where I seen him. I'm like, this is going to be like the next superstar in the league. I watched a lot of him being a Pirates fan and being in division. And of course, I watched a decent amount of Brewers last year anyway because I wanted to physically see why they were proving me wrong. And Churio is just he's a great player. He's gonna continue to be great. Like last year being his first year, was crazy with all the potential he was showing. And the projections I almost feel like are even like from Zips, I feel like are even a little bit low. I think that he could be
Damn you, Zips.
I think he could be even better next year, honestly. And you kind of already talked about Rhys Hoskins. I guess let's go back to him quickly because I think you kind of look at this lineup and he if they want to win the division again, I think there's going to be no question that he has to step it up. Like, not for nothing, they have Garrett Mitchell right now in the four hole, which he had 8 home runs last year. I know it's not all about home runs, but I feel like you need somebody who's going to step up. So, like, I feel like Rhys might be the wild card for the Brewers this year.
Yeah, I mean, he also was in a new situation, and team wise last year, which can be a pretty drastic change. And for someone that was near and dear to the Phillies fans' hearts in the city, it's quite a shakeup to go
It was.
anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah,
we could, but Harper choosing to play first kind of left Reese without a job. They had to let him go. But
Yeah.
I mean, I still tend to believe that Hoskins' season last year was just an adjustment period overall. And so he will be a little bit better. But I don't think unless he suddenly bounces back immensely, like he's never truly been the super power threat, or maybe all-star. It seemed like he was his first year when he hit 18 home runs in like 50 games for the Phillies, but he's been a solid player from what everyone expects nowadays with the hitting 30 plus home runs, getting on base via walks, even if that means his average is on the lower end.
so again, save some of this for when we do our projections, but
Never.
I do have a question. So you said that, what do you think? They're this like second, third, like third best team in this division, you see them being?
If I was gonna do, yeah, they're around the middle of the pack. I don't think they're winning the division, but they're gonna be close.
So that begs the question to me because, of course, I'm like all in on the Reds, but that makes the assumption that you think the Chicago Cubs are going to potentially win this division. And looking at the two teams, comparing them, who do you think has a better team? Because I'm not so sure it's the Cubs. And
I mean,
maybe that's me basing it off of how good the Brewers are year after year after year, but I'm just not certain.
it's gonna be close in that division. I think there could be between the Cubs and the Brewers, it could be like a 3 or 5 game difference. The Cubs have the leadership in council and his experience with the Brewers, and I think that one thing the Cubs did nicely was building their team to what I assume as more of what Council had while he was in Milwaukee, with some nice bullpen options to go with a good 5 man rotation. And I think that the Cubs lineup was already pretty good last year, and they've shown flashes the last couple years that fortunately they just get hot too late in the season, but they can still put up mid or close to mid 80s win totals at the end of the season. And so with the additions they made pitching wise and by adding Tucker, that they can now push them closer to 90. As for the Brewers, in general, good pitching in general last year with their offense. They were bottom third to in some areas even middle of the pack baseball wise, like like home runs, they were 16th in baseball. And so if you're going to take out Adames, I expect that number to drop quite a bit to even maybe like 20th in the bottom third. They were
Hmm.
eighth in average, sixth in runs scored, and 10th in OPS. That might not change terribly between average and OPS, at least average, just because Adames was only like a 240 hitter, 250. But runs scored, I do think will drop some. And also because I think some other teams in the National League are a little better offensively. So just that combination of, all right, if the Brewers had 93 wins last year, and they're losing some of that, then that kind of puts it where they're more neck and neck with the Cubs. And last year I predicted the Cubs would win the division. So if I think the Cubs picked up a little bit more and the Brewers lost a little bit, then I think that could space it out a bit more.
So yeah, I would look at this roster and like the rosters, and I would definitely give the edge to the Brewers in the pitching sense. Bullpen, I think, is up for debate. I think the Cubs made some good additions to the bullpen that maybe gives them the edge. And of course, when you lose somebody like Devin Williams, it's going to be a shock. But then, like, I don't know. I look at the roster and I'm like, yeah, there's still some guys that are unproven. But if Churio is as good as I think he is and takes that next step, I mean, the kid is literally only 21 and just turned 21.
Yeah, he can
Um,
start drinking.
Yelich, he's in a good place for it. Yelich, like I understand he's getting older and there's injury concerns, at least with, the 73 games he played last year, but he was really damn good last year when he did play. So is he gonna be like a big part again and be like a leader for them again? And then Contreras, like I don't know, man. Like this division's gonna kill me, and it's not just because of the Pirates,
Because you're at the
because it's
bottom.
like, well, I really think this division this year is gonna be the division that really trips me up when we do projections and our our predictions and stuff because I the Reds are the team this year, and the reason that the AL Central last year was so tough for me was because I was really high on the Tigers, and I'm really kind of high on the Reds now, and I can say that the Cubs got better. I can say that the Brewers got a little bit worse, but I don't know how much worse they got, and they have the track record. And I'm like looking into it, I'm like, I still think this team can be good. I do have questions again if they are to make the playoffs, like what they'd actually be able to do in the playoffs. I know they have a bad history, but I think this team is would benefit a lot from getting a deadline acquisition if they're in the race, like to shore up the projected lineup that they have now. I don't know, man. Like I'm like not that so convinced that the Cubs roster as is so much better than this team. Um, yeah, man. This division is going to be what screws me over. I'm telling you. Like, I'm either going to be really right about this division, or every team is going to be in the wrong place. Like, there's going to be
I mean, the
no
Brewers
in
as a
between.
team too, they survived fine last year without Devin Williams for the first couple months. But they've also been a team, if you look back a couple years when they weren't the guaranteed team at the top of the division, that they sometimes would flounder. Now it could be pitching wise that was blowing games late. It could be that offense wasn't quite up to par of what it needed to, and they may fall short in the but still finish with the upper 80s in wins. And so I mean they have a lot of track history to prove that they can do a lot with a little, but they're also a team that I don't feel like you can guarantee that everything works quite right every year. And with things being closer, it seems like at least in that top bunch that it could be enough that maybe they don't win a couple of those extra wins that they got last year and those pile up quickly.
And I think getting Woodruff back too is going to be crazy good for them because
Destroy it.
because it's not quite the same when you don't have Corbin Burns there, that scary three that they had. But pairing
Yeah,
him
that's
back
not
up
last year.
with pairing him back up with Peralta, they have Savali, who's good. I think Quintana, as I said, I hated that pickup for the Brewers because as a Pirates fan, I think that's a great pickup for them. And right now, maybe it's just to hold them over, because then they're in a situation where if everybody's healthy, they could have like kind of a six-man rotation. You'd expect probably some injuries, which again, that's why the Quintana signing is so good. But I don't know. I think kind of going back to the first thing we said, should we underestimate them again? I think people will again, but I'm not. I really don't think we should. And maybe this is the year they finally fall off, but I still think they have some pieces to um honestly make another run to the playoffs.
They're gonna
With that,
break my heart either way. Either I'm gonna have them high and they're gonna suck, or I'm gonna have them low and they're gonna be great.
I know. That's it.
You're
It
killing
feels
me,
like
Milwaukee.
yeah, they're like it's such a wild card team. It's just you just don't know what you're gonna get with
Literally,
them.
maybe they are. The
Maybe.
one thing I'm not, well, I will admit, one thing that I find interesting as I look in general with this Central this season is I think back a little bit to the American League Central outlook last year
Yeah.
and how it was. It seemed like it was basically the Twins division to lose, and very much they lost it.
Yeah.
But you had the Guardians get back to what they were not in 2023, but in 2022. You had the Tigers and the Royals both take huge jumps, and you ended up getting three teams in the playoffs from that division, which seemed absurd when the season
Yeah.
started. Things are a little crazier now in the National League. I mean, the Braves now don't have Sean Murphy for 6 weeks because of a cracked rib, and they don't have as much pitching wise. The Padres don't seem like they're as much in contention right now. Diamondbacks are a similar team to what they were last year. Some subtractions in certain areas, some additions in others. Um, so it's like you could probably say that you're getting two teams from the East in the playoffs, and that's just because one's winning the division and the other will make one of the three wildcard spots. But I mean, I don't. Between there are three potential teams that I feel like could even make the playoffs from the NL Central. Um, I mean, two it would be a surprise, but there's enough possibility there in the National League that I feel like things are closer than people realize. At least there's
Yeah.
definitely those teams that are they're way out of it. Um, and there's a couple teams maybe fighting for that last wild card spot, but I feel like there's a lot more in the mix that than people realize. In the Central being that it's as tight as it is, you could get three teams with 87 or more wins, and that could be enough to have two teams in the there are three teams in the playoffs.
Look, I'm one of those people that thinks, and I've said this, and I might have even said it this episode. I really think that if you're an NL Central team, it'll be easier to get in the playoffs via the division than a wild card. Because of you're gonna have either one of the Phillies or Mets is going to take a wild card. I think the Diamondbacks will take another one, and then it's down to the Braves. It's down to the Padres, and it's like, are those teams better than either a Cubs or Brewers? I'm not sure. So I kind of understand what you're saying, even though I've been on this train of like that's again,
Mhm.
that's what I think. But it does make sense. I mean, the I would say the Braves and the Padres both respectively took steps back. For the Braves, I think it's going to be how much they get back with their injured guys, but I don't know. It would be hard for me to see, knowing this division as well as I do, more than one team make the playoffs, but I guess you never know. But I don't know, man. I just look at this team for the Brewers, and I'm like, I just don't count them out because we've made this mistake too many times. And while the loss of Adames is critical, I can still see a way that this lineup works. So, and again, when you have great pitching, that kind of erases a lot of things too. But yeah, that is all for us here at Big League Breakdowns for day 17 of the Around the League in 30 days. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can at BL_breakdowns, Big League Breakdowns everywhere else. If you like the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you really liked it, as next time we will be talking about those Minnesota Twins in the AL East for day 18. But until then, we will see you next time.
Wear your seatbelt.